Well, look, I think what you said there strikes me as a very reasonable, minimal step that can be taken. I mean, obviously, look, there's calls for Kimmel to be fired. I think, you could certainly see a path forward for suspension over this. And again, the FCC is going to have remedies that we could look at.
Guys, we were kind of predicting that this administration was going to use Charlie Kirk's death as some sort of jumping off point to start going after their enemies. And that's exactly what they are trying to do. And before we go ahead and jump into why it is Jimmy Kimmel got kicked off the air, I just want to remind everybody that this is what Brendan Carr had to say just a couple years ago. He says, President Biden is right. Political satire is one of the oldest and most important forms of free speech. It challenges those in power while using humor to draw more people into the discussion. That's why people in influential positions have always targeted it for censorship. Now that aged pretty fucking well. Now didn't it, Brendan Carr? Because it's now your administration, through your office, who is now saying that, this type of comedy we don't necessarily like. And therefore, we are going to pressure these companies to take Jimmy Kimmel off the air because he wasn't sufficiently mournful of Charlie Kirk's death. Now, before I go ahead and show you what exactly Jimmy Kimmel said to get himself kicked off the air, here is Brendan Carr, just Wednesday, on the Benny Johnson show, threatening ABC and these local affiliates like Nexstar. If you guys do appreciate my work and want to support the show, please do remember to subscribe.
The public interest in what people don't understand is that the broadcasters, and you've gotten this right, are entirely different than people that use other forms of communication. They have a license granted by us at the FCC, and that comes with it an obligation to operate in the public interest. And we can get into some ways that we've been trying to reinvigorate the public interest and some changes that we've seen. But frankly, when you see stuff like this, I mean, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. These companies can find ways to change conduct, to take action, frankly, on Kimmel, or, there's going to be additional work for the FCC ahead.
What kind of action would you see? I, at the very least, would like to have an on-air apology from Jimmy Kimmel to the Kirk family, to all of those who he slandered, because he did say that Charlie Kirk, he is effectively saying that our movement did this. Our movement killed Charlie, that Charlie was deserving of this, effectively. And we've seen that rear its head. This happens quite regularly, actually, on MSNBC and on other networks, where they're trying to victim blame. And what that does, Mr. Chairman, respectfully, is continues the lie and continues the threat level to say effectively that we have no share in this problem at all on the left. This is a clear-cut case. What would you like to see done at ABC?
Well, look, I think what you said there strikes me as a very reasonable, minimal step that can be taken. I mean, obviously, look, there's calls for Kimmel to be fired. I think, you could certainly see a path forward for suspension over this. And again,
so this was obviously in response to what Jimmy Kimmel said on his show. But what he is saying here is a threat against these companies. He's saying, well, if they don't change their conduct, well, the FCC is going to have a whole lot of other work to do to get these guys in line. If they're not going to adopt the MAGA orthodoxy, if they're going to criticize dear leader, if they're going to continue doing that, well, we've got strings that we can pull to make your life hard. That is what Brendan Carr is saying here. And so to kind of explain what is going on, you've got ABC, which is owned by Disney, and then you've got a company called Nexstar. And Nexstar is kind of like, they kind of run the local affiliate channels. So you've got the ABC local channels, and those are kind of run by this company called Nexstar. And the reason this gets even more twisted and more dark and just more corrupt all the way around is because these companies have mergers going on in the background, and the Trump administration is using those mergers to make these companies fall in line. We already know that Donald Trump has hated Jimmy Kimmel for quite some time. And now they are using the full force of the federal government to get his ass canceled. And Brian Stelter does a really good job of explaining how this whole pressure system, how this whole extortion system kind of works as it pertains to ABC and Nexstar.
Even though it's a little bit nerdy, this shows how the governmental abuse of power is actually happening, affecting private companies. So Nexstar already owns lots of TV stations. It wants to merge with Tegna, which owns lots of other stations. In order to do that, it needs Brendan Carr, the FCC chair's permission, and it actually needs the FCC to change the regulations entirely about how many stations an individual company can own. So Nexstar has all of this pending business before the government. Tegna also does, and there's another big station owner called Sinclair that also has business pending before the government. So what do we know tonight? We know that both Nexstar and Sinclair called up ABC this afternoon, complained about Kimmel, and said they were yanking the show off their stations. ABC subsequently yanked the show nationwide. So we know that two major TV station owners, both of which need to curry favor with the Trump administration, were the ones that most loudly and vocally condemned Kimmel and said they were going to not air the show tonight and in the coming nights.
This is fascism at work, guys. And for those of you that don't really know what he's saying here, like I said, you've got that Nexstar company. They're only able to own X amount of TV stations. And if they want to merge and make their company bigger, they need government approval to actually make those deals go through. And so what Brendan Carr is doing here is putting pressure on Nexstar and kind of saying like, well, if you don't do what we say, well, then we're not going to let your merger go through. This is what fascism looks like, guys. They are trying to silence dissent. This is not the free speech absolutists or free speech warriors that they claim to be. They abandon every single principle they have as soon as it becomes inconvenient. This is a Trump administration that has tried to exert full control over every area of our lives. It is absolutely disgraceful. It is un-American. And we've got to stand up and speak out against this. We should be boycotting Disney and ABC to get Jimmy Kimmel back on the air. And even if you don't like Jimmy Kimmel, that is fine. We do not want our federal government having this type of control over who and who cannot be a late night host. That is not what our government is supposed to do. And for those of you that are wondering what Jimmy Kimmel said to get himself canceled by these MAGA lunatics, here it is.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction. There's demolition, construction. This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish, okay?
So tell me where he was wrong. Because the MAGA lunatics are trying to say that this is Jimmy Kimmel trying to blame Charlie Kirk for getting himself killed. But that's not even close to what Jimmy Kimmel said here. All he said was that MAGA is doing anything they can to make sure this guy doesn't look like one of them, which is exactly what they have been doing. We still do not have definitive answers as to whether this was a radical left or whether it was a radical right. We just don't know. We do not have hard evidence one way or the other. And so Jimmy Kimmel's statements here, I don't even know how they got offended by this, to be quite honest. They're just using it as an excuse to silence dissent. And if they were even serious about what Jimmy Kimmel actually said, if they were really so offended, why didn't they have anything to say about this? Like, I think this was the first show he did right after the assassination occurred.
The second largest city in our bitterly divided nation, where, like the rest of the country, we're still trying to wrap our heads around the senseless murder of the popular podcaster and conservative activist Charlie Kirk yesterday, whose death has amplified our anger, our differences. And I've seen a lot of extraordinarily vile responses to this from both sides of the political spectrum. Some people are cheering this, which is something I won't ever understand. And we had another school shooting yesterday in Colorado, the 100th one of the year. And with all these terrible things happening, you would think that our president will at least make an attempt to bring us together. But he didn't. President Obama did. President Biden did. Presidents Bush and Clinton did. President Trump did not. Instead, he blamed Democrats for their rhetoric.
Yeah, so Jimmy Kimmel is obviously not celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. And to say otherwise is just a downright lie. I mean, I don't watch a whole lot of Jimmy Kimmel, but from what I have seen, I know he's a pretty empathetic dude. He's not celebrating, and in fact, he's questioning, like, how could people be celebrating the death of another individual? There is nothing wrong with what Jimmy Kimmel was saying here. But even if there was, the federal government should not have this type of control over these private companies. These private companies should not be getting pressure from a fascist administration to make editorial or content decisions for late night television. That is just absolutely insane. So whether you like Jimmy Kimmel or not shouldn't really matter. If you believe in the idea of free speech, if you believe that the government should not be having this type of control over these companies, then you should stand up and speak out against this. Here's Brendan Carr. After the announcement came down that ABC was pulling Jimmy Kimmel, this Nexstar company, I think Sinclair also pulled him off their airwaves or whatever. But here's Brendan Carr basically taking a victory lap for what he has done.
This action today by Nexstar and Sinclair, frankly, it's unprecedented. I can't imagine another time when we've had local broadcasters tell what we call a national programmer like Disney that your content no longer meets the needs and the values of our community. So this is an important turning point. And frankly, speaking of that, obviously, Charlie Kirk set out to change the country, to change the culture, and the results of his work are continuing to produce results, and that's a good thing.
So I just don't know what else to say here. You've got Brendan Carr going on Fox News and basically celebrating that he was able to carry out this dictatorial decision in a private company. Coming from the guy who, like I just showed you, just a couple years ago was saying this about how political satire is one of the most important forms of free speech. That this is why people in influential positions of power have always targeted it for censorship. And that's exactly what they are doing. I just don't know where we go from here, guys. Like we've been telling you, or we've been warning about the authoritarian takeover for so long, but we are right in the middle of it. This is an administration that is trying to silence dissent. And what do you think this does to the other companies who still exist in this space? It's going to chill their speech. This is antithetical to the idea of the First Amendment. It is completely antithetical to the ideas that this country was built upon. And now you've got a government just going out there and going after their enemies, silencing people that they don't like. Oh, he was a little bit too critical. He wasn't sufficiently mournful. So we're going to go ahead and use the power of the federal government to shut them down. And they revel in it, guys. They revel in it. This is the GIF that Brendan Carr sent to Brian Stelter when he was asked a question. When he was asked about what had just happened here. They are reveling in your misery. That's what they're doing. These little fascist fucks are trying to control every single facet of our lives. And when we get outraged at the authoritarian takeover, they throw it in our face and make fun of us. They're making fun of you. And if you think that this free speech crackdown is just going to stop at these news networks or these comedy networks, these broadcast networks, I wouldn't make that bet, guys. We have seen this played out through history before. They just keep on checking shit off the list. And eventually, they will turn their ire towards you, towards me. It's a damn shame that this is where we are in the United States of America right now. Coming from the administration that promised to get into office and be a free speech warrior. Every single one of these fucks can go fuck themselves. I am so sick and tired of the things that they are doing to this country. I'm just freaking over it, man. I'm so irritated. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it there for now, guys. That is the Jimmy Kimmel story. Even if you don't like Jimmy Kimmel, I do not think it is okay to, or I don't think you should be celebrating this type of power that our government is flexing over these private companies. Because free speech is supposed to actually mean something in this country, and this administration is trying to shut it down. So I will leave it there for now, guys. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. We've got to build something here on the left that pushes back against all of this authoritarian nonsense that they push day in and day out. So if you do like what I do here, please do remember to smash that subscribe button. Of course, that is free right here on YouTube. If you guys want to go a step above and beyond that and help me actually produce these videos, you can become a member right here on YouTube for as little as $3 a month. Or what would be even better is if you jumped over to politiscape.substack.com, where you can have my content delivered directly to your inbox every single day. That way, if they start coming after platforms like YouTube to do some sort of similar free speech crackdowns, I can still have access to some sort of audience. So politiscape.substack.com, you can sign up to have my content delivered directly to your inbox every single day without the doom scrolling, without the algorithmic bullshit that we have to deal with on these channels. And until next one, guys, take care of yourselves.